Hello and welcome back to Talent Hub Talk. So thank you for joining this episode. This episode is just with myself. So I have recently been inviting some people to send in some questions and any Salesforce market career related questions that I will answer on this episode of the podcast. I've actually had some really interesting questions posed to me just through the day-to-day role that I do over the last few weeks. So I've included some of them as well, because I think there's some interesting stuff that has come up that I think that will be of interest to the broader market. I also just want to take this opportunity to thank the listeners, yourself, as you're listening, because this is our 99th episode, which is pretty crazy to think that we've hit this number. So 100th episode coming soon, but yeah, it's pretty crazy that we've got to this amount so far, and looking forward to bringing more episodes over the coming weeks and months. So I'll dive straight in and bring up some of the questions that I've been asked, and give my response and my view on my feelings to how the market kind of appears or is acting in those areas, and hopefully there's some value in here for you. So the first question is, what are the percentage differences in pay between the different company types? So this one was off the back of a post I put up on LinkedIn a few weeks back, where I explained that it was getting more and more difficult to move people between certain companies. So I was saying that for end users at the moment, it's getting more difficult to hire from certain consulting companies, because consulting companies in some spaces or in some particular consulting organizations tend to pay higher than some end users. And then also for big global system integrators, sometimes it's getting harder for them to hire from some of the smaller partners, because some of the smaller partners have less red tape when it comes to certain salary bandings. So that was my post. So I got this question: what are the percentage differences in pay between the different company types? And the honest answer is there isn't like a specific percentage difference. I think I couldn't even tell you an average difference between the companies, because in reality, some end customers pay more than some consulting firms, and some big partners pay more than some small partners. So there really isn't a rule. It was just an observation that I'd seen in the market, that from speaking to various different company types, I'd noticed that yeah, really end users at that point were really starting to struggle to attract developers from some of the smaller consulting partners, and also architects from senior people from some of the bigger partners. End users were struggling to make those payments. So I don't think there is a hard and fast rule across the ecosystem. I think every company is different, but that's one of the big things you need to know. Every company does have different salary bandings, and some are a little bit more rigid than others. So in reality, yeah, it's just about understanding, what the company's expectations are, where your expectations fit compared to that, and then making an assessment rather than just targeting certain industries or certain size consultancies, because some will surprise you and others won't. The next question is an interesting one. So, should recruiters that we are working with proactively be approaching our staff? So the honest answer is no, they shouldn't. And it depends, obviously, when you say you're working or you're actively working with them. If you maybe once worked with that recruiter a long time ago, but there's no kind of ongoing agreement, or there's no active communication between yourself and the recruitment agency, then it's a little bit different. But if you're actively working with a recruiter and providing them with opportunities to source roles for your company, then no, they shouldn't be approaching your staff and trying to approach people and lure them out of your business. I think if your staff are actively looking for work, though, it's a little bit different. So if your staff approach the recruiter, and even though you might be working with that recruiter on some other roles, ultimately, if your staff member is actively looking for a job, it doesn't matter if they go through that recruiter or another recruiter, they've already made their mind up to leave. So I think that's a little bit different. But the proactively approaching your staff is definitely something that you would want to have a word with them about, and obviously make it clear that isn't something that you're comfortable with, and yeah, just flag that really. So the next question: I'm a technical architect, but there seems to be more contract roles for developers. Should I step back into a developer role? So through this, there's going to be a few questions that are quite I guess, role specific or career related, and my answer for most of them will be fairly similar. But the answer is always going to be it depends. So if you're a technical architect at the moment and you want to be a contractor, it depends what's the most important thing to you. Is the most important thing being a contractor, or is it career progression and continuing down the architecture path? Some people just want to be contractors, and there are plenty of people out there that have been technical architects before, but are now operating as a developer because there's more volume of opportunities there. The rates are good for developers as well. So if it's just purely about being a contractor, then yeah, go for it. There's no reason you shouldn't take on a developer role. If you've done that before, your skills are good, and you can jump back in quickly and get your hands dirty. If your goal is to progress as a technical architect, to have further career development in that space and potentially work towards being a CTA, or taking on bigger and more complex architecture pieces of work, then I would kind of think that staying as a technical architect would probably be your best bet. And rather than chasing the contract market, you would probably look at different ways that you can progress your career, whether that's moving between companies, looking for a personal development plan within your current organization, or looking at external training that you can get around the architecture journey. So yeah, again, this one really depends. What's your long-term career aspirations and goals? And if it's about being a contractor, then take whichever contract role fits the right budget or the right rate for you, and gives you the kind of work you're looking for. If it's about being an architect and developing your skills further, then I think it's probably wise to stick on that path and keep your eye out for contract roles. But yeah, potentially look for other permanent roles that are going to help get you towards your goal. Next question, how regularly are you seeing fully remote roles, and should I be applying for roles interstate? So we are actually starting to see some more remote roles. There are a few clients that we've been working with that have been really actively approaching remote candidates, looking for people that are interstate, and being really kind of open to people working interstate 100% of the time and fully remotely 100% of the time. Other companies are less keen to do so, but we are definitely seeing the tide turn a little bit more. Obviously, people have had their hands forced a little bit with people working from home, but we have seen that this has been successful, and more companies are starting to consider interstate candidates. So should you be applying for roles interstate? I mean, not every role is going to say it would consider an interstate candidate on the job advert, but I would say you've probably got nothing to lose by putting your hat in the ring, applying for a role and making it clear that you would be looking to work remotely. I did actually see a gentleman in Brisbane recently apply for a Sydney-based role that wasn't advertised as a fully remote role. He secured the position as a platform manager, and yeah, ultimately, had he not applied, obviously they would never have approached him. So he turned out to be the right candidate for the role, and it was all down to him just putting his name forward, making it clear that he wanted a remote role, and that worked out quite well for him. So yeah, I would definitely keep an eye on opportunities that are well suited to your skill set, whether that's in a different state or just a slightly different suburb in the state in which you live. But yeah, keep an eye out on opportunities that are well suited to the skills you have. Next question is, I'm not ready to leave my role just yet, but I'm worried the demand in the market will drop off. Should I wait or look now? So this was a conversation I had with someone on the phone recently, actually, and their concern was that the market's really busy now. They're not in a rush to leave their current role. They feel there's some things they need to achieve and do still, and some I guess further clarity that needs to come through on pipeline and things like that. But they're worried that if they don't make the leap now or start looking now, that in a few months when they do come to look, the market will have dropped off and there won't be as much demand. In all honesty, what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is that the market's going to be very busy for a long time. I've spoken to multiple end customers and consulting firms over the last, the last 6 years, but over the last couple of months, the demand has been more so than I've ever seen before, and the conversations we're having just kind of back up the fact that that's not going away. I do think things will settle down a little bit when the borders open and when people can come into the country from overseas, because I think some of the consulting partners will look to bring people in from overseas and some of their offshore teams into the region. But yeah, in all honesty, I wouldn't have any concerns to say that the market is going to be busy in 3-6 months time. Who knows what will the world will look like in 12 months, but right now I'm confident the demand isn't going anywhere. Consulting companies are looking to grow. I've spoken to various partners that are looking to double their team size. Even some of the bigger partners are looking to grow by really extensive numbers. So yeah, no concerns from my end with regards to how much demand we'll see in the market over the coming months. The next question is, if I like a role but not the job title, how open are companies to renaming the role? So we do see this. We see people that might be in a Salesforce admin role now and want to go into another company, and the company are hiring for a Salesforce admin. So it seems like a sideways move. And even though it might be a step up in terms of complexity of the Salesforce org or more responsibility, sometimes people don't want to take the same role. So companies seem to be quite open to changing a job title. It would have to fit in with most companies' kind of model. So they're probably not going to call you a Salesforce solution architect if that isn't the role you're doing, but they might call you, rather than a Salesforce admin, they might call you a Salesforce analyst or a Salesforce solution analyst or something like that. So yeah, I see no harm in asking that question, but I always say that the most important thing isn't the job title, it's actually what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So people don't hire you just because of the job title you have. They hire you based on what you're doing, what you've achieved, and what outcomes you've achieved for your previous employers. So the big thing here is, yes, you can ask to change your job description, but a job title, but the biggest thing is making sure that the roles you're taking are giving you the experience and the exposure that you need from a day-to-day perspective, not just the job title you're looking for. And that goes as well with having senior in front of your title. Some people like to have senior if they're moving between one company to another. And it doesn't always, like, to me, it doesn't matter that much. When I speak to a candidate, I don't necessarily give judgment to whether or not they have senior in front of their title or not. It's really about what have they worked on, what have they achieved, and how strong are their skills, rather than what they've been called in the past. The next question is, how is the existing Salesforce job market in Australia looking like at the moment for overseas talent? So this is a tough one, because I mean the market here is great, it's buoyant, there's lots of opportunity, but there really isn't a market at the moment for overseas talent, because it's difficult to get into Australia. Not many companies are sponsoring right now because they're unaware when someone would be able to be on the ground in Australia. I know plenty of Australian permanent residents that are currently overseas and have struggled to get back into Australia. So yeah, the market here is buoyant, but it's not a great market for people looking to relocate from overseas, especially those needing visas and sponsorship. So I think that will change again, like I said, when the borders open. I do think the market will rebound, and there'll be lots of opportunity for people coming in, because companies have and are struggling to find local talent. So I do think there'll be a real spike in companies looking to bring people in from overseas. But right now, as of today, the 16th of July, when I'm recording this, I wouldn't say that the market is one that you're going to have much luck in, unless unless something drastically happens with regards to borders being open or something changes. But yeah, unfortunately, we're not seeing many new people come into the market right now. What are some of the Salesforce areas / skills in high demand which are hard to come by in the region? So we are seeing, for me actually, this last few months, I've really seen a spike in marketing cloud opportunities. I think there's some really good small partners that are doing great work in the marketing cloud space, some bigger partners as well. But yeah, there is a real lack of available talent, I would say, in the marketing cloud space. I feel people have there has been some movement, people leaving and joining new partners and new customers. But yeah, I feel like we're definitely a few, or more than a few, but a number of people short in the marketing cloud space to be able to keep up with the demand that we're seeing. Interestingly as well, I've seen recently I've seen some demand coming through in the commerce cloud space. So both B2C and B2B commerce. I've had some roles in that space, which isn't an area I've ever really recruited in before. So that's been interesting to see some growth in that space. And then you have the kind of I guess niche but more well known and common areas now. So like CPQ, FSL, they're definitely growing, and the demand is pretty steady and ever increasing, I would say. So yeah, they're areas where we're seeing growth and definitely a lack of experienced talent. But then also, developers are really hard to find. Just a real good, solid Apex developer that obviously now most people are looking to have web components, line of web components experience and senior development skills, but just a good solid developer is hard to come by, and there's lots of opportunity, lots of volume of roles in that space, and not enough good quality talent. And then architects as well. I mean, really, I would say good solid Salesforce resources. So whether that's a functional consultant, a developer, if they've got good experience, they've worked on some challenging projects before, they invest in themselves and passionate about Salesforce, and I think there's opportunities all over the market for people like that. So yeah, it's a really good market for anyone with solid Salesforce skills right now. What are some of the unique competitive advantages that the Salesforce market in Sydney or Melbourne has to offer compared to other regions in APAC? I think just the volume of opportunity. Like even if we just look at ANZ rather than the APAC region. So if we consider Sydney and Melbourne compared to Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, and obviously Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch, and so on. Like I appreciate the New Zealand market is also very busy, and there's lots of opportunity and also a shortage of good experienced talent over there. But the volume of opportunity in Sydney and Melbourne is just great. There's constant demand for good people in these cities, and the salaries are really good. The salaries are higher than you'll find in other cities in Australia and I believe in New Zealand as well. So people can earn really well, work on big complex projects. So we have we've got big banks, we've got big utilities companies, we've got government departments, we've got pretty much everything you could imagine from a client base here in Sydney and also in the Melbourne market. So there's lots of variation between projects and some really complex pieces of work out there. So I think working in Sydney or Melbourne gives people good pay, good opportunity, and good challenges. So there's some really good talent, some good people to work with. And they're both really good markets to excel your career and really push on to the next level, because although they are big markets in terms of volume of opportunities, they're still short of good talent and good experienced people. So with good skills under your belt, you can progress quite quickly and secure lots of different opportunities. And then the final question is, I am a Salesforce functional consultant and wondering which is a good career path. So should I be a solution architect or a product owner? Maybe if you can give the pros and cons of each career path, including future demand. So this goes back to the previous career-related question. Like it really does depend, and it's difficult to answer without sitting down with the individual and really going through what they enjoy doing. I think solution architects are very much in demand. And I think the beauty of the solution architect role is that it's now in demand across both consulting partners, where there's been big demand in the past, but customers are also hiring for solution architects internally. Salesforce hire for solution architects, ISV partners hire for solution architects. So pretty much every government department, pretty much everyone across the Salesforce ecosystem is open to hiring solution architects. When I say pretty much everyone, I don't mean all companies, because not every company size or is going to make use of a solution architect, but every kind of company type. So big companies in the end customer world, big consulting firms, small consulting firms, everyone. Every different company type would look for solution architects at some point. So I think there's lots of volume there. I think the future demand there will be really good. Product owners is more of an internal facing role. So, working for an end customer, working for a government department, could be working for an ISV, but it isn't necessarily a role that's often hired by consulting companies. So for pure volume, I would say solution architects probably would be the more in demand area in the future. But in saying that, it's really hard to find good product owners and people that have good, solid Salesforce knowledge, but more so, not necessarily being a hands-on person, more, managing stakeholders, defining and delivering a roadmap, working with the business and also the technology team. So being the kind of conduit between the two, those people are really hard to find as well. So it comes down to what kind of role do you enjoy more? Where are your skills better aligned? Like, do you think like an architect? Do you want to work on purely on projects and work in that kind of delivery space? Or are you someone that enjoys kind of taking a long-term view of a platform or a product and driving engagement and I guess making that product as fit for purpose over the long term? And depending on which one you prefer, then I think there's going to be good opportunities in both areas. And really, it's just about identifying which skills you have are most aligned to that role and what areas you really need to work on to plug those gaps. So yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with either role, but it really depends what you want for your long-term career and what your skills are and what you enjoy doing. So yeah, hopefully there's some interesting insight there for you. And I'm always kind of keen to answer any questions you have. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn anytime, drop me an email, give me a call. Yeah, these are the kind of conversations I'm having on a daily basis. So if anything comes up that you kind of are unsure about, or you're just looking for some advice or some insight from myself, then I'm always willing to provide that. So yeah, look forward to hearing from you. Hopefully you're enjoying the podcast episodes, and yeah, keep your eyes peeled for our 100th episode, which is coming in a week's time. Thank you.